Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Owen Ó Súilleabháin. He's an artist. He's a leadership leaders coach and many multifaceted artist, renowned for his work as a singer, composer, speaker, and leadership coach. He draws on his rich heritage in the performing arts and academic background in philosophy, Greek, and Roman civilization. Welcome to the show, Owen.
AJ, namaste or namaskar to all our friends in New Delhi, India, and all around the world. A great honor to be here making the Celtic Vedic connection. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Owen. And I am sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk about. We'll be talking about Celtic wisdom for modern times. And this is such a wonderful thing to talk about. And I'm especially excited, that we'll be talking about such great stuff. But before we come to the topic itself, Owen, if you can take us a bit about your journey so that people know who they are listening to, also learn from your journey itself.
I will. I'll give you, and it's before I get too bogged down in the details, do you know what I'm going to read you a poem, and this is a poem from the book my brother wrote. It's called Early Music, his first collection of poetry. And my brother right now is flying from Ireland over to Newark in New Jersey, because he's going to the home of his wife. His wife's name is Namarata Desai, who was raised in New Jersey in a great Indian Desai family there. And she's a graphic artist, and she drew this beautiful representation of a Celtic shield, which is the front cover of this book of poetry. And Namarata is a graphic artist, and this shield is an ancient Celtic Bronze Age shield. It's a large shield, and it was found in a lake in Ireland, where we're from our part of the world, from West Ireland in Limerick, County Limerick. And this shield would have been an offering to the gods that was thrown into this ceremonial lake where we're from. And there was a drainage scheme in Ireland in the 20s, and they drained the lake a little bit, and they found this old shield. It's one of the finest examples from the Bronze Age Celtic times. And of course it's representative of the sun. Sun worship would have been very important in this time. And there's also a series of rings and dots of concentric, so there's all kinds of numerology associated with this, and numbers that would have been celebrated and marked at this time. So this poem is called Tros Dhanam, which is the old Gaelic for the journey of your soul. Anam is your soul. And my brother wrote this poem. We call a lot of our work, we call it a journey of the soul. It honors that part of ourselves, that inner part of ourselves that is the invisible world. And if there's 8 billion people in the world, there's 8 billion definitions for what the soul is. And that's perfectly appropriate. So I'm going to read you his poem called Tros Dhanam. And this poem really is a celebration of beginning with a pause, making a clearing in your life, in our busy external world of the visual and the apparent and the urgent, to take a step back and to allow a bit of a break and a bit of space. So of course this is dedicated to anyone listening to this podcast right now and the recording in the future. You've created this clearing in your life to allow a bit of space in your life. So this is an invitation to step into that space, to take a deep breath and relax, and to hear something that you've been waiting to hear. So the poem is called Tros Dhanam. He says, oftentimes the step backward lets the soul catch up, so that all our happy hindsights harmonize and wisdom builds. Share your luck, be miserly only with misfortune. In each seismic shudder, we learn to trust the ground again, be humble again, knowingly heartbroken, unrepentantly wounded, proud to bear pain, laying claim to the joy factory of your body. No more tariffs or sanctions, wage cuts or glass ceilings, conventions, expenses paid, nor lanyards or company position. Oftentimes, the way you can live in ways others simply will not, develop sides of yourself others simply would not. So, feel the rhythm beyond the break. Feel the rhythm beyond the beat. Begin with the break and let your soul catch up.
Wonderful, wonderful, Owen. So, do we need do we need to catch up with our soul, or does the soul need to catch up with us? How does it work?
How does it work? I think it begins by doing the opposite of what you think you should be doing. So instead of beginning at the first step, you begin actually with the break. There was a great story our father used to tell. Our father was a great musician, and he'd hang out with traditional Irish musicians. And he was meeting for a rehearsal with some traditional Irish musicians. And, they had all the preparations. There was a big concert coming up. And there was great pressure and stress. And anyway, all the musicians got into the room, and one of the musicians said to my father, "Here we are now. Sure, we'll begin with the break and have a cup of tea." And there's a great wisdom in that, which is that we do all of this work in the external world. We wouldn't be alive. We're from a lineage of extraordinary survivors that have brought us to where we are today. And we are all extraordinary experts in our own life. And so we have all the credentials. We have all of the diplomas. We've attended all of the master classes that are needed. We know within us everything we need to do. And now we need to get out of our way and take a step back and actually allow a part of ourselves to emerge that will not emerge through forcing or through pushing something out. It will emerge through invitation. And so to begin by taking a step back and allowing our soul to catch up, it'll catch up in its own time, and it will not be forced. So there's something counterintuitive or paradoxical about connecting with ourselves. You can't hit it straight on. There's no pill. There's no course. It's the word mystery is always associated with these kinds of things. Mystery and mystical. And that word is always associated with the unknown. And so there's something important about not knowing, about humility, and saying that I don't know how your soul will catch up. But it's in every person, each of us knows individually what that means. And I can't tell you, you can't tell me. And I can't take someone else's advice. It has to come from within. And that story changes over a human life. The things I did, to allow my soul catch up a year ago are different to what they are today. And so the human life is constantly learning and learning new ways, and the old ways at times no longer work for us. So that's a long answer to say I've no idea, AJ. I don't have a clue.
It's a great answer, Owen. Let's understand Ireland a bit. People have heard about it, but you tell us, what is, special about, what is so special about Ireland? You talk about helping the world along with the genius of Ireland. Why does the world need Ireland, more of Ireland in today's time? And then you also talked about, Ireland and India. So why does the world need more of the Indian thought process and the Irish thought process, the culture? Help us understand a bit more about the heart of Ireland, the soul of Ireland, the beauty of Ireland.
Ireland is, I think, especially to the Indian, and I make my home now here in the United States of America, and I often say to people from countries as vast as India or the United States of America that Ireland is as small as India is big. And it is so, so tiny. It's a tiny little island off the west coast of the west of Europe. So if you go as far as you can, all the way to the west of Europe, you cross the English Channel and you hit mainland Britain, and then you cross the Irish Sea and you hit Ireland. So the west coast of Ireland is about 400 miles out into the North Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Northern Europe. So, and it is a very fertile and temperate climate. It's not warm at all, but it never freezes. It rarely will freeze. So way out in the North Atlantic Ocean, which is a very inhospitable place. The North Atlantic Ocean is infamous among sailors, nautical people, as being a very dangerous place. This was where the Titanic sank, you know. So the North Atlantic is a very dangerous ocean. And yet out there, hundreds of miles off the coast of civilization, there's an island. And it's green all year round. And there's, no earthquakes, there's no volcanoes, no animals will harm you. The humans you have to watch out for. But the climate and the landscape is extremely hospitable and welcoming. And it's a place where in the wild oceans of the North Atlantic you can pull in and find safe harbour there. So the geography really dictates how the culture is going to grow and build. So Irish culture is extremely hospitable. We say in Ireland, when you meet someone from Ireland for the first time and they're coming to your home, you'll say, Céad Míle Fáilte, Céad Míle Fáilte, 100,000 welcomes. You're welcome 100,000 times. And that's just a normal turn of phrase, And so Ireland has this culture of hospitality, of welcome. And then when you come to Ireland, you have this sense of being held in a very protected and protective environment. You can go to sleep outside, you can fall asleep on the side of the road any night in Ireland and you'll wake up refreshed the next morning, There's water everywhere. There's stuff grows nearly all year round there. And so Ireland has this extraordinarily generative energy, a very creative energy is in the land. And so if you look specifically at the arts and the history of creativity and imagination in Ireland, Ireland is constantly having a global impact on imagination and creativity. And right up to the modern day, Ireland is constantly producing authors and filmmakers and writers and dancers and musicians that are world famous. So you'd think there's 1 billion people in Ireland, but there's only 5 million people on that island. And they're mostly concentrated in Dublin and Belfast, and then the rest are spread out very sparsely. So it's a very welcoming place to be. Artists travel there from all over the world to spend time in Ireland, creative time. And Ireland has always been that place over the centuries. There's examples of Ireland representing this place of the imagination. It was always a place of pilgrimage that people went to from Europe over the hundreds of years. Even there's evidence of it being a place of pilgrimage for thousands of years. And people go there for a pilgrimage to gain access to a higher form of knowing, to gain a dispensation into heaven. You can get to heaven faster if you come on pilgrimage to Ireland. And so there's all of these traditions. And to this day, people come to Ireland and we bring people on creative and spiritual experiences to Ireland. And even today, here's a letter I just got yesterday from a woman. This is a photograph she took of a wall in Ireland. So you'll see this beautiful vegetation growing out of the grey rock, And she took this image herself. And she wrote this beautiful message to me about how important the experience was with her in Ireland, how creative, how generative it was for her own personal journey. I have another email from a person today telling me the same thing. So we bring people on these experiences, and Ireland just has this, there's something in the energy, something in the soil that allows you to articulate a part of yourself that's waiting to be called out into the world.
Absolutely. And it is time, waiting to be called out into the world. And that is where you talk about the genius of Ireland helping the modern world today. So what is this genius of Ireland that can help the world today?
Great. So cool. So to get more specific about this, Ireland has strangely represented this a counterbalance to the Western modern imagination. The Western modern mind likes to see things in straight lines, in graphs going upward, in evolving systems that are always progressing toward perfection and producing visible results in the visible world, right? Now, for some reason, Ireland has represented the counterbalance to that type of imagination. Ireland, over the centuries, we have evidence here that Ireland was this place of the invisible world, a place that is represented by the spiral rather than the straight line or the crossing of lines, you know, that the Western mind is so obsessed with. And Ireland is a place of spirals, of dynamism, of movement, of change. And even the weather, again, I always go back to the geography, AJ. The geography is so indicative. We can learn so much from geography and the seasonality of a location when we want to learn more about the culture that comes out of that place. And in Ireland, the weather changes. So it changes every minute. There's wind blowing in from the North Atlantic. There's constantly wind blowing. And so if it's raining, just wait a minute and the rain will pass, the sun will come out. If the sun is out, just wait a minute and the wind will blow the rain back in, you know. You can put on your coat and you'll be cold, and then the sun will come out. You'll have to take your coat off. And this is happening constantly in a day in Ireland all the time. The weather is changing. And so the mind, the imagination starts to become more used to change and allows change to become more part of the worldview. So Ireland has always been this place of mystery. The word Celtic even, I don't know if your listeners, but many people in the US and in Europe associate the word Celtic with an indigenous European type of ancient wisdom that is in counterbalance to the Western Enlightenment scientific sort of mind. And that's just been the place Ireland has. Perhaps it's like us in our busy world. We need to imagine that a place like this exists in the world in order for us to console ourselves. So Ireland is this magical place that's in our mind that allows us to be so present in the visible world. Because when we return to that place, to our deep heart's core, we refuel, we replenish, we re-nourish ourselves and re-strengthen ourselves to go out and be present in the visible world. So Ireland has acted as this place of the imagination. And again, I mean, we can talk about specific examples over the decades, over the centuries. And I'm sure even all your listeners have some idea of Ireland. And that came from one of these periods. Ireland also goes through these periods where there are great cultural explosions. And these cultural revivals have impacts politically in Ireland and then have knock-on effects across the world. And again, there are examples of these continuously. The last one maybe was in the 1990s. There was a great cultural explosion in Ireland that had a huge impact on culture around the world. The one before that was in the 1960s. And then there was another very significant one in the late 1800s, the turn of the 20th century, which really emboldened Irish nationalism and Irish national independence from the British Empire. And that was very much came out of a cultural movement at the time that then went on and influenced other colonial countries to gain their own confidence in stepping back from colonial oppression. So there are so many examples. We could be talking for hours, for days about them. But that's one of the energies that this Genius of Ireland has to teach the world, that it's a place for you to replenish, to renourish, to re-articulate who you are, a place where you can speak your truth. And in doing that, you reform your entire world. And that's one of the invitations that Ireland offers.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Owen. And so my next question is, where is Ireland? Is it only in Ireland, or you can get this Ireland anywhere in this world?
Well, AJ, you're streets ahead of me, because I love to always say that everything I talk about is a metaphor. Everything, you know. So if I'm talking about Ireland, I'm not talking about Ireland, you know. I'm talking about the Ireland within you. And so everything is a metaphor. And I love that way of looking at the world, because if you can take the time to sit down around you and say, what does this mean in my life now? You know, here I am right now, Thursday, September 19th, at nearly 1 o'clock, speaking to this man in New Delhi. And we're talking through this extraordinary information technology. All of this electricity is flying around the world, connecting us. What does that mean for me in my life right now? And specifically with this conversation, it means really cool stuff. And Ireland, again, has one of the great, there's one of the great poets from that period of Irish history, the turn of the 20th century, was a man called William Butler Yeats. Yeats, spelled Y-E-A-T-S. And Yeats was one of these great poet leaders who were forming this new independent Irish national identity through poetry and through theatre especially. He founded an Irish National Theatre, which is still existent today. And in this theatre, he was a very spiritual man too, and he believed that the enactment of theatre was ritually actually transforming the visible world in a magical way, that the arts and spirituality had a magic, and that in order to have effect in the outer world, you had to first have an effect in the inner world. And so this was one of his first poems that I'll give you now. It's called The Lake Isle of Innisfree. The Lake Isle of Innisfree. And Inish in the Irish language means island, Innisfree. And he's using this is a metaphorical island, an island of the imagination. And Yeats, this poem came to him as he was walking down Oxford Street in London, which was the centre of the empire of the world back in the late 1800s. You know, this was like Fifth Avenue, New York City. This was the most important place in the world at the time. Or at least it thought it was the most important place in the world. And as he's walking down the street, he hears the sound of water in a shop front. And the water is trickling down a little display, a shop display. And the sound of water brings to mind this magical island within his own heart. And he comes up with this poem, and he says this poem was the first time he actually found his own poetic voice. And it's a short poem, and he wrote it in a folk style. He was very powerful, high intellectual mind, but he wrote this poem in a very folk style, a very simple way, which I think is very telling. And it's called The Lake Isle of Innisfree. So this is all about that idea about this island being actually within us, that Ireland is within us. And Yeats says, I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, and a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee loud glade. And I will have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, slow like the veils of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight is all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening filled with the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always, night and day, I hear lake water lapping in low sounds by the shores, When I'm upon the roadway or on the pavements grey, I hear it in the deep heart's core. I hear it in the deep heart's core. And another great lesson there. You can be in the most noisy, busy, intense, high-pressured place in the world, and instantly you can be transported to the Lake Isle of Innisfree. You don't need to go on, to walk the Camino de Santiago or to pilgrimage to the Taj Mahal or spend, weeks in silence in an ashram. You can actually be right where you are right now, and bang, you can be transported to that place. It's within us. It's within reach constantly. And that's a very important thing I find from that poem, that I don't need to have to, I don't have to kill myself to go there. It's right here beside me right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the irony is, from that island to we have become islands of loneliness, and that is where the Ireland comes in. The real island comes in. You talk about this whole epidemic of loneliness, islands of loneliness. How can we then, invoke this Ireland, which we can bring at any place and stop ourselves from becoming islands, but actually, become islands of happiness, connected with each other in the best way possible. How do we do that?
Last night I watched a show on Netflix, a new retelling, a Hollywood retelling of ancient Greek mythology called Chaos, with Jeff Goldblum as Zeus. It's great fun. Beautiful, beautiful film. And one of Zeus' friends, of course, is the famous Prometheus. And Prometheus in Greek mythology stole the fire from the gods. You see, humans had no fire. And Prometheus stole the fire from the gods and gave us fire. But for his transgression, Zeus chained him to a rock. And every single day, chained to a rock, an eagle would come and pick out his liver. Cursed for eternity for having given technology to humanity. And it's an old story told often in our modern world today. The word Prometheus is often used in the context of this curse of technology. That the fire represents technology. We're actually we're communicating right now through the element of fire, of photons firing through cables all over the world right now. This is a fire element that we're talking in. We're communicating in a force field of flame right now. But there's a curse there, and the ancient Greeks represented it. All great mythologies know this. All great wisdom traditions know that with our intellect comes a counterbalance, a payoff, a karma, if you will. And what happens is the gifts that we bestow can actually imprison us and chain us. And the liver is always represented too with anger. Anger and loneliness frustration and loneliness are often linked, And so we live in a world today that is gifted with so much technology that connects us. And yet that technology also confines us to our place. You and me, AJ, we should be having a cup of tea right now. I should be over there in New Delhi. And I should be smelling the air and feeling the breeze and, the heat and the food and everything. And you should be here in Western New York with me right now and going for a walk out in the beautiful autumn landscape here at this time of year. And that's the cure to loneliness is, there's no big secret. It's spending time in person with people. And when you do that, the complexity that occurs, the energies, the force fields, the microbiome, the atoms that are transferred between people. I'm not talking about conversation. I'm talking about something way more interesting and complicated, which is presence within another, a presence even within nature, within the natural world too, Because with our technology, we're in climate controlled boxes a lot of the time, or in these cities, you know, these very artificial environments. And we can become detached even from the planet that we were born into. It's quite crazy, you know, when you think about it. So it's no big secret that we are becoming more confined and angry and frustrated and lonely because as our technology advances further. So what mythology and wisdom tells us is, hang on, don't worry. What you're experiencing is totally normal. Prometheus experienced it. All the great wisdom traditions experience it. If you're feeling lonely and if you're feeling frustrated and angry, of course you are, because you're surrounded by so much technology. But now, here's the thing. First of all, you have to acknowledge it and recognize it. It's not your fault, for example. It's not your fault. And here's a way to redress that imbalance. And there's two things to do it. You walk out the door and you jump in the car or the bus or the train and you go to nature. You walk in a field or a forest. And then the second thing is you actually call someone and you say, let's meet up for a cup of tea and a cup of coffee. And you go and you meet them. Yeah. So you have to, or invite someone into your house. Come on over for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. And that's it. That's all you need to do. It's very simple. Yeah. So that's three
Very
things.
simple.
That's three things.
Absolutely, very simple. But when you talk of Prometheus, Greek mythology, let's also talk about Greek mythology and Plato's Symposium. And in that, humanity apparently was cursed. You know, they talk about that story in Plato's Symposium that human beings, they will always keep on. They were talking about love. And they talked about that, you know, it was Zeus only, again, if I remember correctly. And perhaps he got a bit, you know, afraid or whatever it was. Then the curse was that, you know, people were separated from their loved other half. And now people keep on looking for the other half. And then this whole great, you know, definition about love, that, you know, the real love. But actually what has happened is it looks like it has spread towards our own souls. And now we have gotten separated from our own souls in this modern time by our own greed, maybe because of technology or whatever it is. So help us understand about how through the inner soul circle, you are trying to, you know, take care of this soul so that, you know, the soul and the humans, they don't have to catch up with each other, but can walk with each other, talk to each other.
And thank you for reminding me for the commercial pitch. So we do. My work is all about people, bringing people together, and my way of doing it is through performance, through song, through poetry, and through conversation. So when I get people into a group, I'll sing, I will give poems, I'll give some reflection, and then I'll invite people into conversation, into pairs, to turn around and to have a conversation with someone they didn't come with and ask a question. And you tell people to do that, and there's a few seconds of extremely uncomfortable shuffling in the room, you know, where nobody wants to talk about. And then I just stand there and just look at them, you know. And then eventually they'll turn around to the person beside them. And then it's like someone has dropped a bomb in the room. There's just this explosion of conversation. And you can't shut people up afterwards. You have to shake them and say, stop. So that's what I love to do. And I've learned that, you know, both my parents are great performers. My father passed away in 2018, but he was a national composer in Ireland and a great educator, a teacher. And my mother is still alive and well, and me and my brother work with her all the time. A great teacher, performer, really seeing the arts as a form of ministry, not for the soul, and for the soul of a culture, actually, and a soul of the world. That the arts are there as a medicine to solve our problems and to get us over something. And so that's the work I love to do. And of course, we are restricted by our geographies. People can't just jump in a plane and fly to New Delhi. And we do have this extraordinary technology. So one of the things we've done is gather people online. And we've created this monthly membership community called the Inner Soul Circle, where people sign up for a month. It's $32 a month. And the commitment there is important. It's like holding the library card in your wallet, or you've committed to something and you've transacted, you've put down a payment, a transaction of value into this commitment. And so it's every month on the first Saturday we send a letter, a reflection, and we base it around the time of the year, the Celtic calendar, which is a phenomenal teaching, a very wise and ancient teaching about the calendar. It's very much linked to the Northern Hemisphere, of course, and the Celtic climate in particular. But again, it's all metaphorical. Like we talk about, it's all about the seasonality within us. And that's universal. So we base it on the calendar and the 4 Celtic seasons. And each month we send a letter reflecting on that time of year with poetry and song and story, mythology around that moment of the year. Then on the second Saturday, we'll send a pre-recorded teaching, a course that me, my brother and my mother have done. And so you can watch that in your own time. And on the third Saturday, we gather for a live Zoom call, where on the Zoom call, me and my brother and my mother will present on something of that time of year, and then we'll break people out into breakout sessions to have a conversation. And so a community is built up of people there, of friends. A friendship has built up, friendship amongst themselves and with us too. And then people can come and visit us at our live events. They can come to Ireland with us. They can work one-on-one with us. But that community, that inner soul circle, is our way of sort of staking a claim in this virtual world, trying to utilize technology to create a sense of belonging. And it's been great. We just really committed to this monthly model this year. And now we've 140 members. And it's wonderful. It's just great. And then they come to Ireland with us and we meet with them, you know, at events around the country. And it's been such a heartwarming and a beautiful and a tender project that I'm very proud of.
Wonderful. One last question to you, Owen, is about, you are a leadership coach.
Yes.
And a lot of leadership is in question by the way in terms of they are looking at things, running their businesses, looking at the climate, the whole concept of, you know, taking care of the climate and so many other issues. What would you like to tell leaders, wherever they are, in whatever capacity, about the message of Ireland for them?
So I'm working on a book right now about this, and there are kind of six main pieces of advice I'd give. But the most important is to commit to taking this step back. So every great leader is in that position for a very good reason, and they know they've earned that, yeah? And they know that they could spend their entire lives focused on the urgency and the busyness of their role. But there's actually a greater reason why they're there. And that is true individually for each leader, and they know what that is, but they have not articulated it yet. So in order to ascend, to go from just being a manager to being the leader that they know they can be, they must do certain things. And the first thing is to just put down their tools and to schedule time to do nothing. It goes against everything that got them to that place. And they can continue doing what they're doing until they die. And that's fantastic. And most people have beautiful lives doing that. But there are some people who know that there's more and it's bigger than them. And in order to get there, you have to put down everything. For just, again, it doesn't have to be a 3-week retreat somewhere, a silent retreat. It can be very, very small, but it must be done and committed to. That's the first thing. The second thing is, surprise, surprise, get a coach. Invest and commit transfer money from your account to their account. Money is very important here in this thing. Commit to time in your calendar, regular time, and find a coach, an independent coach who works for themselves. The crazier the better. And speak to that person and be heard and overhear yourself speaking to someone within that type of relationship. And in doing that, the knots start to untangle and you start to overhear yourself say the things that you always knew were needed to be said. So those are the two things I would say are the most important. Take time, write it down. 15 minutes on Friday, okay? And then the second thing is start to imagine entering into a relationship with a coach that you trust. And that might take a bit of time, you know, but you will find the right person. They will come. And then the thing that you know, that the real reason why you're in this position will emerge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is so much to learn from you, Owen, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to learn about you, from you, about Ireland, and also about the inner soul circle. So
Very
what's
good.
the best way for them to do so?
Oh, well, yeah, click on the website there, which is thurisdonham.com, which is the journey of the soul in the Irish language, the same name title as the poem I read at the start. And contact us through the website there. All the emails come to me or my team. And we love to hear from people, love to hear anyone's reflection or response on what they heard. Any questions as well, too. I love to hear. And yeah, look forward to hearing more about your own work in future, AJ, and where you see your work in the way, in the state of the world today, and what future you see that lies ahead.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much.